Greetings, kindred. So I'm actually recording this on the 7th of November, and the eclipse takes place tomorrow morning. Now, I actually haven't looked up the eclipse itself. I've just got the full moon chart here. So, yeah, I didn't get time to check that out, but I did post an article about that in my Facebook group, all about the astronomical context of that. But as you can see, I'm starting with the Mars retro chart. So Mars turned retrograde on the 30th of October. And the reason why I'm covering this right now is because the eclipse astronomically does take place in the sign of Aries, and Mars is the ruler of Aries. So Mars going retrograde just before this eclipse is very relevant. So I do want to cover this a bit. So Mars retrograde on the 30th of October, early afternoon here in London. And Mars started his retrograde in Taurus, conjunct the Black Moon Lilith. So really, when Mars first turns retrograde, when any planet first turns retrograde, or when the new moon first begins, or when the full moon reaches its peak, all those points are like the setting of theme. So, the date and time Mars went retrograde, this is the theme that has been set for his journey in his retrograde mode. Now, I think he will stay in Taurus. I'm not sure if he will go into his own sign of Aries. I haven't looked that far ahead, but I will check that out another time. But this here is like, wow, very, very triggering. And I think at the eclipse, we all kind of like lost our energy, maybe lost our voices a little bit, just really felt like this big loss of hope. And there's a lot of energy going around. It just feels people are feeling a little bit low at the moment. And, it is that time of year as well where we lose a bit of energy as the autumn comes in and winter's on its way here in the Northern Hemisphere. We do tend to lose energy around about this time, especially here in the UK when the clocks go back. It kind of puts us more into hibernation mode. Do you know what I mean? So Mars going retrograde in Taurus now, this is very much a push-pull energy because Taurus is very slow. He doesn't really like change or adventure. He rather sticks to what he knows. And, he's one of those signs that really only believes in what he sees, whereas Mars is more impulsive, more adventurous, looking for some excitement, wanting to push forward, is very active. So him kind of slowing down in the sign of Taurus is really kind of like Taurus holding on, saying, no, I'd rather stick to my comfort zone. And, but at the same time, I feel triggered, because Mars is like in conjunction with the Black Moon Lilith. The Black Moon Lilith is in Gemini. So it makes me feel like there's a lot of like triggering, like verbally. Do you know what I mean? A lot of verbal triggering. So people may be getting snappy, getting irritated. And also, we have Mars in quincunx to Pluto. So, wow. So this is really a clashing of energy. And it's like very primal and triggering. And normally this is bringing in like memories from past lives or memories from childhood, but normally memories that really are based on the darker moments in our lives. Do you know what I mean? So with Mars in quincunx to Pluto, it's very compulsive, but also very impulsive. So as much as Taurus is like slowing the Mars energy down, Mars is erupting because he's rebelling against that energy. So it's really a push-pull between Mars and the Taurian energy that's coming in. So also we have Mars in square to Jupiter. Now, this aspect really is like, you know, a misuse of resources. It's an aspect that kind of glorifies war and really gains financially through destruction and violence. I mean, that is what that square represents. It's like, you know, I don't want to say arrogance. It's not an arrogant energy. It's more like an entitlement. You know, it's very much an energy of entitlement. And I take what I want and I don't care what I need to do to get it sort of attitude. And I do think we've been kind of experiencing that, or we're becoming more kind of in recognition of that energy that's being played out, you know. Um, so, I mean, this is the 30th of October, but it will be in effect for a long time. But obviously, Mars will change aspects with other planets as he continues to retrograde backwards. But this is the theme, like I said. So we also have Mars in trine to Mercury, which is good, really. Um, you know, it does involve a lot of talk around kind of science and politics and stuff like that, but it's also really good for research. So if we are feeling triggered, we really need to tap into what that triggering energy is. Or maybe, you know, it could be that we're not familiar with what we're feeling. So, you know, maybe it's a case of what's being put out there verbally that's triggering us because we either don't want to face up to it, or, you know, we feel frustrated because we can't move forward because of it. Do you know what I mean? In some form or way. So I really do feel that maybe some of us need to sit down and do a little bit of research, maybe, you know, make some notes, make some plans, because there's a lot being put out there about this coming winter and how we all need to kind of prepare ourselves for that. And really, you know, we can only do the best we can. And, you know, I really do believe that in this kind of situation, yeah, we do have faith, but not necessarily the blind faith that's based on fantasy or false optimism. You know, we really do need to be active in this time, but not active where we are impulsive, but active where, you know, the one good thing about Mars being in Taurus, I mean, if we are kind of familiar with self-control or have done a lot of work on self-control, I think we can really use this energy wisely, because Taurus does have a good mind, especially when it comes to business and money. Mars is a little less, you know, good with money. You know, he's a little bit of a spender. But then, you know, so maybe if we can use it, I mean, no energy is just wholly negative and no energy is wholly positive. You know, there's good and bad in it all, depending on how it's affecting our own charts. Do you know what I mean? So there's always a negative and a positive. So, you know, we do have this yod here though as well. So the yod is actually in sextile to the south node. And then they're both forming this quincunx towards Chiron in Pisces. Now, you know, I mean, this yod is kind of like giving us the opportunity to like get in touch with other people, or, you know, start feeling like we can come together as a community, help each other, or maybe, you know, we need to hold on to things for the future. But you know, the south node is at 5 degrees, which is quite shifting, and in Libra it can be, you know, cause a little bit of imbalance when it comes to our comfort zone. especially since the South Node is conjunct Venus and the Sun. So, you know, it's like really holding on to things too tightly, where really we need to be more acting in a more community setting, working with other people, whether that's members of our own family or a group of friends or the neighborhood. So when we're talking about making plans or, not thinking you're being too far-fetched out there, because I know there's a lot of people out there that are just comfortable in going with the flow and, but many of us out there, we're feeling very uncomfortable right now. Some of us may not even be able to put our finger on it, especially since the eclipse took place end of October, towards the end of October. So, I think from that, there was a little bit of instinct. There was a little bit what we saw going on around the world, maybe, that kind of triggered us into thinking, all is not well here. I feel that things are very much speeding up at the moment. And I think people are feeling that energy. And like I said, it's triggering, so we can be a bit snappy, we can be a bit irritable. We need to calm that down, either through meditation, like I said before in my last video, chanting, singing. It's all about the voice, especially since the voice has been so suppressed over the last few years. Do you know what I mean? With all this Geminian division that's been going on. So, Gemini has been very active throughout this time as well, especially since Pallas, the goddess Pallas, has been transiting through Gemini. So this is someone who has it's differences of opinion, but we need to agree to disagree to, create harmony, because with the Geminian energy, it's like two brothers that are very different from each other, but they have to live together. So they have to learn to agree to disagree. Do you know what I mean? To create more of a harmonic atmosphere. We can live our separate lives, but still, be confident and sure about our own path. So we need to stop looking at other people's paths in life or other people's opinions, especially more so in Gemini, and stick to our own. Do you know what I mean? But not necessarily enforce those opinions onto other people. And I think that's where we've been going wrong over the last few years. Yeah, the information does need to be put out there, but all these differences of opinion is basically wasting time. When we can be putting that time into things that are more important. And this is the Geminian energy as well. It can be very scattered energy where we're not truly focused on what we should be focused on, especially, since Pallas is an opposition to Pluto, and Pluto just it's like mind blowing, or it can just make us absent-minded if our minds are not equipped to absorb all the information that's coming in, especially emotional information. So it might be too much for us to get our heads around, and that's why it's like a double-edged sword. Do you know what I mean? The negative and the positive. So I hope I've made sense with that. But so this quincunx, I mean, what prevents us from truly embracing this opportunity to come together is maybe insecurities or suspicion on our past experiences. Do you know what I mean? So maybe a fear of being rejected, or, maybe we've been through experiences where we find it hard to trust, or maybe it's a little bit of a fear of failure. Do you know what I mean? Or maybe our expectations can be a bit too high with the South Node in Libra. Maybe our expectations are a little bit too high. And with Ceres and Leo, I mean, Leo can tend to wear his heart on his sleeve. So I would also say here, be very careful as well of like manipulating situations. You know, look after your things of value, your money, your you know, your material things in life. Just make sure that you're not being hooked into anything as well. I would be aware of that. So if you're unsure about something, then don't act. And maybe this is what it is. Do you know what I mean? But for some of us, it is about uniting with community. I mean, we know what's right and what's wrong. You know, we all have instinct, but sometimes our instincts can be overruled by past painful experiences. So I really do feel this is based on a lack of trust, or maybe we have found ourselves in positions where, you know, we've lost out because like something hasn't been genuine, or maybe we're not being genuine. You know, maybe we're not being authentic, or maybe because of like the scene that's been set over the last few years, we may have lost touch a little bit with our own identity. Do you know what I mean? So there needs to be work done there. And I would definitely say, you know, leading up to the eclipse and even throughout the eclipse, this is a good time to really kind of just work on yourself, work on your own self-healing, you know, because this dark wave that's coming in from eclipse is going to be pretty deep. I mean, they always are, but especially in times like these where the outlook is very bleak. So let's look at the full moon lunar eclipse. Now, here in the UK, the full moon will actually reach its peak at 11:02. I'm not sure what time the lunar eclipse takes place. Yeah, sorry about that. I did mean to look it up, but I just didn't get time. So I really need to get this out to you because once again, I'm late. um, so yeah, 11:02 here in the GMT time zone, at 6:02 in the EDT time zone, and at 22:02 in the AEDT time zone. And, you know, the eclipse will take place in the sign of Aries, like I said. So, you know, the Mars retrograde through Taurus is very relevant. And I see that energy actually continuing throughout this solar eclipse. I keep saying solar eclipse, lunar eclipse. So we just had the solar eclipse. Obviously, I'm still in that energy right now. um, so, you know, whereas the solar eclipse is more about the external and it's more about external events that are global, it's more about the masculine energy. The actual lunar eclipse, which is also known as a blood moon, it's very feminine. The energy is very feminine. So it's more, you know, on our inner level, it's more internal. So whereas we had the solar eclipse where we was watching what was going on around the world, or, you know, we kind of come into some kind of recognition or had inklings there or feelings or instincts, this full moon lunar eclipse will actually bring it to the forefront. So it's our subconscious minds coming to the forefront, and it's a very shadow energy. So this is a time where all our issues and our fears can come to the surface. But, you know, if that is the case, then they are being brought to the surface into the light to be examined. Do you know what I mean? Because if we are in our ego, like I said at the solar eclipse, if we are in our ego, then, you know, we're going to be in for a hard time getting through this energy. But if we're in tune to our instincts, if we're receptive, you know, if we can kind of like be the light in the dark, then I think there's a lot of hidden gifts there to be discovered. Do you know what I mean? But if we're very much in that ego, of course, it can be very self-destructive and a lot of inner turmoil. You know, things do seem pretty bleak right now. What's being put out there is kind of like bleak views, but I really do believe that we're going through all this. It's a big cleansing going on, and we're not alone. I think many of us can be feeling very isolated right now, but I think we need to really get our heads around that we're not the only one out there. You know what I mean? So, yeah, I mean, this full moon as well. I mean, there's a really strong T square here towards Saturn. Now, that's also very relevant, especially since we've got a little stellium of planets in Libra. And then we've got a little stellium here in Aries. Now, the Uranus has actually been conjunct the North Node for quite some time. So this is collective shifting going on, very fast, but very transformative. And now with the moon in the middle, I mean, this is not too bad actually, because like emotionally we're being catapulted to accept all the change, especially in Aries. You know, so even though Taurus is slowing the Mars energy down, and remember planets do tend to slow down a little bit in retrograde anyway, apart from Uranus. You know, but it's a very frustrating time because like Taurus is a very slow paced energy. Mars is a very fast paced energy. And Uranus is a very fast paced energy. So I think, you know, the Mars energy is going to be very strong. But remember, it's taking us backwards, not forwards. So we're going over old ground and we're going to realize a lot throughout this time. Because Mars has got, he's very instinctive, but he's also very sensitive when it comes to his emotions. I mean, you know, he's not, he's one of those, Mars is a kind of planet that will cry in temper. Do you know what I mean? So, yeah, him going back, and Taurus is all about comfort, self-comfort, you know, it's all about the comfort blanket. And so Mars is going to be actually doing a lot of evaluation on his material circumstances and maybe physical as well, like environmental, material. So maybe looking at where he kind of was impulsive and overspent money, or maybe where he let his ego overrule, you know, his emotions. You know, maybe things that he's created himself to make his life pretty uncomfortable right now. So that is like the masculine energy. But this T square, getting back to this, I mean, you know, this is a very, very uncomfortable opposition. Again, remember I spoke about Venus at the eclipse. And, you know, even though the eclipse is kind of happening here, Venus is going into darkness. So basically, you know, there can be really some eccentric opinions out there, but it can also be a very blunt and tactless environment, you know, maybe with difference of opinions or eccentric opinions even. There's going to be a lot of unreliable information coming out. Emotions may become unstable. Relationships may become a little bit chaotic. And I think things may feel a little bit beyond our control, so it's putting a lot of pressure on our structures. It's putting a lot of pressure on our commitments or our ability to enjoy. Like Christmas is coming up. Normally everyone's looking forward to Christmas and getting ready for Christmas. And maybe there's a little bit of depression out there. There's definitely a lack of self-expression with this T-square towards Saturn. It's a very oppressive energy right now, especially since Saturn is in his own sign of Capricorn. And there can also, though, be a lot of ego involved in this as well. Do you know what I mean? So people that are not so much in their ego may feel to take a back step because they don't really want to be involved in it. But I just get a lot of toing and froing of antisocial behaviour, really. It's a very inhibited energy, let's just say that. But the people that will make the most of this energy are those that are very controlling. Do you know what I mean? So the atmosphere is going to feel very much at disease with this energy going on right now. And, because the North Node is involved, it makes it a collective energy. So there's a lot of mood swings going on right now as well. So really, with the Black Moon Lilith now in Cancer, in opposition to Pluto. I mean, like I said before, this is husband and wife, and the ending of their marriage was very, very bad. It caused a lot of problems for mankind, and we're still kind of all suffering the consequences of that. So we're going to see this opposition go on for a while. And it's been quite some time before these two were in opposition before. I didn't actually go back on charts to see. It's normally kind of every 8-ish years. Do you know what I mean? Around every 7.5 to 8 years, the Black Moon Lilith will come into opposition with Pluto. And these are two very, very dark energies, two very kind of destructive energies. Whereas the Black Moon Lilith is more self-destructive, Pluto's more kind of destructive externally. Do you know what I mean? So, there's a lot of opposing issues going on worldwide, because Pluto is more generational, more global. And yeah, all I can say is we've got to keep the faith, but we can't build castles in the sky with Jupiter in conjunction with Neptune in Pisces. But it is a good time to be creative, to make something out of nothing, or spiritual healing, or, like I said, singing, chanting, using the voice, because there's a lot of suppression on the voice and being able to express ourselves verbally for many of us during this time. So, thank you so much for your continued support. I am hoping to be back on the board myself, but this has been a pretty kind of disruptive year for me. It's supposed to be the year of my Jupiter return. And yeah, it's just been chaos all the way through. So I'm just hoping things will slow down a little bit now. I'm coming to the end of that. And yeah, and there was me complaining about my Saturn return the year before. And really, it was very sluggish and very slow, but it was still very productive. This year, I just feel like I'm all over the place. Do you know what I mean? But anyway, just thank you so much for all your support. And please do reach out. This energy is very dark right now. The solar and lunar eclipses will kind of drag on a bit for several months. And then we have a lot going on in the new year, planetary-wise. And I will get into that another time, more closer to the time. So it's kind of fresh information. Do you know what I mean? I know there's a lot going on in the world this month. I'm wishing you all luck out there. And yeah, just stay safe and keep the faith in yourself. Sending you all peace and much love. Take care.